So uncertainty is, and mystery, the unknown, usually are thought of as negative factors. Uh, we feel like if we know things, we'll know how to move ahead, how to function effectively in life, and that people who don't know, fail, die, whatever. There's a survival thing connected to knowing. And that gives us a bias towards feeling certain, latching on to certain data and holding it as this is what is. And in many situations that works okay, particularly small situations, mechanical situations. If something's wrong with your car and cars, what's needed to fix it, and you fix it and it's fixed. When you start getting into situations that are alive, like a human being or a classroom or a community or a society or an issue, or into something that's not alive technically but complex, like the weather. And the weather is where the complexity theory first started to form up, was noting that just very small changes in the amount of what was it, rounding up. This weather guy was rounding up this to like 4 decimal points instead of 5 decimal points, and the results came out totally differently. It's like, what? That you'd think with such a small change, the results would be only small difference. But because of the feedback loops, the iterations within weather systems, where one thing influences the next thing, and small changes can magnify in those systems be very large, that generated a lot of inquiry, which fed the emerging complexity science. So to start from a place of we actually don't know, we can learn more, to be curious and open and constantly engaging with what you're working with, to accept uncertainty and to not stop prematurely. Certainty, there's psychological research shows that certainty is not something that is necessarily attached to information or understanding. It is an emotion. You can have an emotion of certainty when you actually are not operating on any data at all. So to realize that when you feel certain, that is an emotion, and take it with a grain of salt. If you really believe too much in your own quote unquote certainties, that's a danger. You are sure to overlook something because you're so focused over here, you're not seeing what's over there. And uncertainty, not as something, well, I don't know anything, I can't do anything here, but not having certainty, being flexible in your perceptions of what's going on, allows you to continually scan over your environment and to continually reflect on what you want, where you're going. There's a greater chance of a wise solutions arising out of that attentional attitude, attentional stance. And I say probabilities and surprises rule. In any complex situation, you're going to not see certain things. Things are going to show up suddenly, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Suddenly something happens you didn't expect. The supposed side effects that are not really side effects, they're just effects that we don't like or thought were, unexpected. That tends to be there in any living situation. And to not think linearly. Linearly is if we do this, that's going to happen. And nonlinear is if we do this, there's a certain probability that's going to happen. And the more we know and the more systemically we think, et cetera, the higher the probability that what we're wanting to have happen happens. But there's no guarantees at all. You don't know, in fact, whether you will wake up in the morning. You don't know, in fact, whether there'll be an earthquake in the next couple of minutes. So it's like we don't know at a very fundamental level. But probability is you're going to wake up tomorrow, and the probability is there'll be no earthquake in the next 10 minutes. So we operate on probabilities, but recognize them as probabilities. Don't act as if they're guaranteed and everything is totally stable, because then you get whacked up on the side of the head when things don't turn up that way. But possibilities can flourish in that space. Let's try this. Since it's not guaranteed that we're not going to make it, let's try this and see how that works. And explore different. Let's look at this possibility. Let's look at that possibility. There's a whole other pattern in here on possibilities, and learning. If we let go of our certainty, we can learn from what happens instead of just rejecting or accepting things in a black and white sense. We can learn the nuances and become more flexible through more flexible kinds of learning, and hold our plans lightly. There's a leadership theory that I like, which if people are looking to you for leadership in a situation, bring something into the situation that offers a structure to people's thinking or planning, expectations, but hold it lightly. So if you get energy from the people or energy from the situation that suggests that's not necessarily the best way to go, roll with that. That's instruction to help you adapt appropriately. So go ahead and make plans, but hold them lightly and actively engage. Be responsive to what you get back from the world and from other people. And valuing diversity, there's this dynamic tension between efficiency and resilience, and having redundancy and diversity in a system allows for, if things don't go quite the way you expect, there are different ways of dealing with the situation built into the situation, because there's diverse approaches, diverse viewpoints, diverse entities, diverse people, diverse species, whatever it is. There's diversity in the system that allows you to be more responsive. So when you recognize uncertainty and recognize complexity and the dynamics of that, you intrinsically value diversity because it helps you succeed even though you don't know. And of course, paying attention as things unfold is obvious. If you don't pay attention, you are responding to what was rather than what is. And so that's another adaptive response to uncertainty. And nurture resilience, which I already talked about. Be happy to have redundancies in your system. Have things and people who are doing similar things, maybe with little slightly different approaches. But if you have 5 species of corn and a blight hits one of them and wipes it out, you still have 4 species of corn. If you have 1 species of corn, blight hits it, wipes it out, you're done. You don't have any more corn. So that's nurturing resilience and delight in the doorways that are opened by the unexpected, instead of surprise being a problem, surprise being oh, look, that's part of what's going on too. Whoa, what could we do with that? It moves into the possibility thinking card or pattern here also. So there's ways to be irritated or ways to be delighted by the same kind of surprises. And of course, delight helps you enjoy things instead of being upset by them. And I would love to practice this more in my own life, but I know that these ways of looking at uncertainty and using it positively are quite potent to the extent that we can do them individually and collectively. And scenario work, which when I say scenario work, I'm thinking primarily of where you're looking at various possibilities in the future. You're not attached to any of them. You're just going, if it unfolds like this, how would we respond? If it unfolds like that, how do we respond? Sometimes people do these quadrant grids. If here's a factor that is going to be either very important or not very relevant, not very present. And here's another factor, the X and Y axis. Here's another factor that will be, it could be dominant or it could be very small. So this creates 4 quadrants, of possibilities. And you go, okay, if this quadrant manifested, how would we respond? If that quadrant manifested, how would we respond? You're not planning, you're doing sort of an exercise of a gym. It's like resiliency gym. You're doing a workout on possibilities to think ahead. And none of those may happen, but the actual working it out helps you be flexible in the future. Humility, of course, this is not a method, this is an attitude, a stance in life. So humility is obvious. You don't want to be arrogant. That blocks your ability to see what's going on. So in order to be responsive, you say, I don't know, but I'm trying to learn. Shifts over into curiosity, which is the next the next one on our little list here. And feedback and systems thinking. You live in, the richer your feedback environment, the more you can handle the complexity that is usually associated with uncertainty, and think systemically. It's like lots of bits and pieces are coming at you. Where are they coming from? What are the deeper dynamics? What's the interconnectedness here? You're in a dance. You're not marching forward in a line. You're in a dance of what's going on. Multiple viewpoints when you're setting up a dialogue or deliberation, making sure you have different perspectives present. Different stakeholders have briefing materials that represent truly different ways of looking at the situation that's being deliberated on. Always think in terms of multiple viewpoints. Transition towns is an effort to help towns be resilient in the face of shocks, economic shocks, environmental shocks. They originally were performed around peak oil. If suddenly the price of oil goes skyrocketing, it's hard to get hold of oil. Large lines at the gas stations, petrol stations, whatever. How do you function as a community if you are deprived of our familiar sources of support from the environment, from the economy, from the various materials and energy sources that we use? So transition towns is moving beyond our dependence on those things and helping a town learn how to do that. Buddhism, Buddhism has as a fundamental principle, there's one thing that's real and that's always there, and that's change. So you need to learn how to be unattached to the way things are or the way you want them to be. It's fine to, see what's there. It's fine to want things to be a certain way, but don't have your deep self attached to that. Be able to let it go and flow on and say goodbye to whatever's leaving. That's kind of a fundamental, basic background principle of Buddhism. So anybody who has Buddhist training or Buddhist philosophical thinking or experience is more able to deal with uncertainty. Evolutionary activism goes, evolution is change, everything is change. It's a somewhat more scientific, science-centered approach than Buddhism, but it's like we are in the midst of a flow of change all the time. So who are we being and what are we doing in that flow of change? So as an activist, you're going, I am playing a role in how things are unfolding. And I don't know where it's going. I don't know what the impacts of my life are going to be, what my acts are going to be, but I'm going to live in this space and work as best I can responsively to what's going on. That's the flavor of evolutionary activism. Clearness sessions is somebody is at a point of not knowing what to do in their life. They've hit a crisis, a dilemma. They feel trapped, stuck. And the Quakers have this process called Clearness Committee of bringing friends together to help you look at that situation, to ask you questions. We refer back to the powerful questions pattern to help you look at what's going on and find new directions, new understandings within yourself, and new possibilities that come out with the conversation with people who care about you and what's happening in your life. So when you feel uncertain in a way that sticks you in life and you don't know how to move forward, clearness sessions are a very powerful way of dealing with that. And a much more simple day-to-day thing, there's many people who use Tarot and other, I Ching, other oracles. And it's not so much they're going to predict the future and tell you what's going to happen. It's more, these are well thought out and intuitively derived mirrors for deep patterns within yourself and within your life. It's sort of like looking at a Rorschach test, ink blot. Here's a meaningful, well-designed, well thought out ink blot for you to come to and look at and see deeper parts of yourself you may not have noticed, deeper possibilities you may not have noticed. It's a stimulant. That's the way I look at them anyway. And it's to live in uncertainty with this good friend that is printed on these cards and in these books to talk it over with. That's how I look at the oracles and use them in my own personal uncertainties.